Hello and welcome to another video for week 2. This is where I'm going over the responses to discussion 2, which is kind of a reflection on what you learned from composition 1 and what do you know about your own writing. And I'm not going to go through everything because there's a lot here, but what I did is I just pulled uh, I plagiarized. I copied your work and just pasted it right here so we could all kind of see a compilation of everything. And I just kind of hit on the main points. But a lot of you seem to learn some good stuff. I'm glad you said you didn't learn anything, especially those of you that were in my Comp 1 class last semester. But what it seems that most of you learned is that, well, yeah, you need to write in order to be a better writer. So you got to practice that writing. So it can be maybe you learn different formatting styles. It can be organizational skills. It can be the pre-writing skills. All these things, and we have to really start figuring out, well, what do I need to do to be a better writer? And we can't, ever just plateau and say, well, I'm the best writer ever. I'm never going to write any better than I am, because you will get better. But there's a lot of different things, time management, how to communicate, how to present your ideas, how to read someone else's writing. These are all good things. So I'm glad you're learning them. To not stop writing no matter if I lost my point or not. Yeah, because you can edit, right? That's always a good one. So just keep writing. If you don't know what you're saying, that's fine. Just keep writing. Don't stop. You edit, you revise. That's always good. Another question, what makes good writing? And this was kind of all over the place because some of you were thinking about reading a good fiction book. Some of you were thinking about what makes good writing when you do it. Some of you were thinking about the writing you like to read. Some of you were thinking of academic writing. So all sorts of different things, which is great because writing is this huge, very overly broad thing. And that is all right. A lot of you said, know what you're writing about, be engaging, all that sort of stuff. And the key takeaway is that writing is something that's meant to be read at some point. So your job is to present that idea to whoever's reading it and to help readers understand who should be reading the paper. Or not even paper, whatever it is you've written, because there's all different types of writings. So make it clear, make it understandable, make it to the point, and it should be engaging at some point. A lot of you talked about correct grammar and all sorts of stuff, which is fine. Correctness is good. Meeting the conventions and expectations of that genre is very good, and that sounds like a very heavy phrase, but conventions meaning what are the moves, the keywords, the vocabulary, and style of writing that the genre has. Like, if we think about fiction or movie genres, right? A horror movie has very specific paths they go down. You know what to expect when it's a horror movie compared to a romantic comedy. And when they mix conventions, it makes for a different type of movie. So, similarly, a report is going to be different than a review, or a personal experience essay is going to be different than an interview essay. And so there's all these different types of writing, and how are you fitting it in? If you're going to be a healthcare worker, how you code and write in those various things that you have to write in when you work up a patient's chart are going to be done in a very specific way. Similarly, if you're in business, you're going to have a specific language that you're going to be writing in. Not language, but coded words. Like you might have heard of code switching, where you speak differently to a group of friends than you would to your friends in church or to your family. Right? You use different language, different styles, different forms of expression. That's code switching, and it has its benefits, but it also kind of reinforces these rigid expectations. But work is going to have these things. You're not going to call your boss an MFer. Hey, MFer, what's up, you jerk? And maybe that's perfectly acceptable around your friends, but not with your boss, right? So those are the expectations in genres, and the same thing's going to happen in writing. It depends on that situation we're writing for. I like to ask what you do best because I think it's important for us to recognize that we all have strengths. And none of you said, oh, I just totally suck at writing and I don't have anything good. So I was glad to see that. Some of you can be very critical, and that's fine. We got to learn to tamper that critic a little bit. But otherwise, I'm getting news, and all I see is the word swastika. But it's about something, the Parkland shooting. So if you see that come up in that window, that's what it was. I'm not getting news on swastikas. Let's see. So a lot of you have some ideas of what makes good writing and what makes you a good writer. So I'm glad. And some of you, just pick a good topic, good introduction. These are all great things. We need to build off of them. I did find it interesting that many of you, when you wrote about grammar, you spelled it Grammer, which is phonetically how it sounds, which is fine. It's a very common mistake. But if you're talking about your good grammar, make sure you spell it correctly. Okay, just the heads up. I'm not gonna like ding you on anything because it happens and you're writing quickly and who cares, right? You misspelled grammar, whatever. Not a big deal. Not the end of the world. I like this one. I think I'm a good storyteller. That's wonderful. If you can tell stories, that's great. How do we convey those into writing? Where are you weak? I think this is all good. Too critical, repeating things, grammar, being repetitive, grammar and being weakest area, coming up with topics. All these things, that's what's great about this, is that they can all be addressed either through practice or through some other lessons, but mainly through practice. And that's a good thing. The more you write, the more comfortable you should start to feel with it, especially if you take some of these external and internal pressures off. If you sit down and say, okay, well, I have 30 minutes to write 1,000 words and it better be really good, that's an impossible task. I mean, you might be able to do it, but if you give yourself that pressure, you're not going to be able to do it well. So instead, if you plan and bring yourself a lot more time to your schedule, that was a weird sentence, sorry. Give yourself a lot more time to say, okay, well, I'm just going to write for 20 minutes and see what happens. And maybe you write for 20 minutes, maybe you write for 15, but you set yourself these little goals. You can get yourself a little timer, set it on your phone or whatever, and give yourself this time to write. That's always good. A lot of times it's about your time and chair. That's one of my writing instructors said. Time and chair is what matters. Are you sitting there and are you writing? It's easy to procrastinate. I know how it is. You sit down to write an assignment and you're like, man, I should clean the bathroom. No other time in your life will you want to clean the bathroom, but when it's time to write, I got to clean the bathroom. Okay, so it's okay. Write something, give yourself a goal. I'm going to write the worst draft ever and write that really horrible draft and then come back to it. But we often don't give ourselves the time we need to revise. I think when it comes to getting stuck, most of you had the same advice: take a break, which is wonderful. It's what you do on that break is important. You should think, but not too much. Don't kill yourself. Don't beat yourself up about it, but talk through it and write it out. You can write through writer's block. The problem when we get writer's block is that we're not really saying what we want to say in the way that we think we should be saying it. If that makes sense. Instead, we should try saying it in a different way. I'll give you this exercise later on. Dear Grandma, I'm writing about blank. Or just repeat this phrase. What I'm trying to say or what I mean to say is blank. No, what I'm trying to say is this. And just write that down and get those ideas. I mean, all of you are in the shower arguing with these fake imaginary people, whether they're past arguments or future arguments. We're doing the same thing on paper. All writing is just talking to yourself and eventually translating that to talking to someone else. So take that break, do something mundane, right? Get a snack, go on a walk. Walks are great. Go on a drive. Don't drive too fast. Sing a song, dance, do something else. Make some brownies. I don't know. Eat some brownies. Do whatever you want, but give yourself a time break and then come back to it. there's a reason why you get your best ideas when you're either driving, or I get mine mowing the grass, or you're in the shower or whatever. I'm not fixated on showers. Those are times where we have like true alone time, and it's just our thoughts, and we sing really well in the shower, all that sort of stuff. But um, how do you collect those ideas? But the reason is because we're occupying ourselves. Our brain can kind of do something, and then those good ideas will come up. So give yourself that time. Don't try to force things. Um, I guess when I sit there until it happens, right? That's wow. I admire that dedication, but if it's not working, it's not working. I always tell students, whatever works, works. Um, so figure that out. That's hard. I really like this, and this is the last section. What are some stances you would like to convince others? And some of you are just very generally like, oh, I would think about this and do that. But a lot of you have some opinions, like Grey's Anatomy. That's wonderful. You have a stance. Good. Reading. That's always good. Never too old or too late to go back to school. That's really good too. Death penalty or capital punishment. I'm sorry, this should have been a separate thing. Abortion. Oh, I can't get that. This is not a Word document. All those sorts of things. And I didn't say for or against because some of you are for and some of you are against. That's fine. Wearing a mask. Criminal Minds is a great show. I've never seen that. Sleep. Trusting the process, right? Not downing too much. Views on assisted suicide. Everyone needs to be loved or deserves to be loved, right? Coke is really good. We should reopen schools. They should play a sport in high school or college. These are all good things. It's good to have stances. And we could actually use some of these for your research project. Now, I'm not going to expect a research project that Criminal Minds is a great show. You could actually probably do that as your research project, and that would be all right. I don't recommend it, but you could actually do it. Some of these bigger topics like abortion, capital punishment, euthanasia, assisted suicide, marijuana, guns, drinking age, those don't always make for good papers because they're much bigger topics than can be corralled into a short college class paper, if that makes sense. They seem really simple because you're like, oh, well, if we just did this, it'd be fine. But if they could be solved in a 5 to 10 page paper, they would have been solved by now, but they're not. And it's not because one side is bad or whatever. It's because they're very complex issues, and they're constantly changing and evolving, and what was true 20 years ago is not true anymore, and all sorts of interesting stuff. So my big thing is when we start selecting topics, and I have a whole lesson on this, that I don't want you to select something that is going to pull into question your moral, ethical, or religious leanings or identities, because you should be able to look at this and say, well, what if I am wrong? We're reading about that this week. What happens if you're wrong, right? And we get into this circular argument. Well, I can't be wrong because I'm right, right? My morals tell me that this is right, and I can't question my morals, so I know I'm right. All these different things, right? My religion tells me this is the right way to do it, and if I concede on this point, then my religion is wrong, and I am wrong, and everything I've ever lived for is wrong. And we're unwilling to do that. I don't want you to do that. This is not to put you into a religious, moral, ethical crisis. This is to get us thinking about things. And while many of you might really feel passionate about these topics that I'm going to forbid you from writing on, it's a lot better to not engage in them, because part of my job is to challenge you on your stances. And you're like, oh, well, you just don't like this paper because you're against this. Well, I'm not going to take a side on these topics because that's not my job. But I'm going to push you to think about the other points of view. And it doesn't even matter if it's about Coke or mental illnesses or Criminal Minds or school or whatever. I'm always going to be pushing you to think beyond what you're saying and thinking, because that's part of this job, to give you a better handle on this topic, because if you can't refute an argument, that argument is probably not very good in the first place. So we always have to be able to address these counter arguments, these counterclaims. So anyway, that I got really heavy in there. I'm sorry. That's what we're doing, and I hope this is helpful for you. I know this is another long video, and if you're really bored, you're watching this. If not, you haven't made it to here, and that's fine. I just like to put it out there just so you have something else to do. So questions, just contact me, and thank you for watching.